The story of Crazy Joe was torn from yesterday's headlines, and it's as terrifying as tomorrow's.
Good morning. Welcome back to Crazy Joe's Concession Stand. I am Crazy Joe, and today I want to talk to you about Borderlands, the movie Borderlands that is currently playing in theaters, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Cate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, the voice of Jack Black. It is not doing well at all. It is bombing. It is bombing with critics, and it is bombing at the box office. But the reason I want to talk about it today is because the other day on the John Campea show, and to those of you who aren't familiar, John Campea is a movie pundit, does movie talk, movie discussion every day live on YouTube. And I watch him almost daily. I think he's one of the best there is out there at movie talk, primarily because he keeps it focused on the movies. He talks about the movies. He doesn't get caught up in personal drama. It's not, we're going to attack this other YouTube channel we don't like. There's none of that. It's very well organized, people. And I've been on a lot of movie talk streams, some right here on this very channel, where people talk over each other. They start shouting each other down. He's very good at keeping things in control. I think it is a really well put together show. And he's a pretty knowledgeable guy. And he's knowledgeable. You're not always going to agree with everyone. That's fine. That's, what makes movie talk interesting. There's different opinions, different perspectives. Film is subjective. But it's really frustrating when you hear a guy like John Campea, who is very intelligent and he understands the movies and he knows his film history. He's well versed. When he says something like we're about to talk about, it drives me crazy. So Borderlands has bombed at the box office. And he did a video the other day on the top 10 reasons, or the top 5 reasons Borderlands bombed. And he gets to this part that, well, to say it drove me crazy would be something of an understatement. Let's take a look. This is from the John Campea show, 5 reasons Borderlands bombed at the box office.
That it failed to impress the critics and the audience. That hurt it. The fact that it was a huge mess behind the scenes, that definitely hurt it. The fact that it faced stiff competition in the box office, that definitely hurt it. And 100% the fact that Lionsgate went with such a weak marketing campaign for it, and they skimped out on it pretty much, which I think tells us that Lionsgate never believed this movie could make money. Because clearly they believed if they put $70 million into the marketing campaign, the movie wouldn't even make back the marketing budget. So clearly Lionsgate never believed in the movie either. It leads us to the point where we have to start asking the question, should they have done what David Zaslav did with Batgirl?
Right.
Would they have actually come out more financially ahead if they just realized, listen, this movie is a disaster. We don't think anybody's going to go to see it. We don't want to put any real marketing money into it because we don't even think we will make enough money at the box office just to make back the marketing budget. At that point, they should have done what David Zaslav had the foresight to do and just pulled the plug on the movie and say, look, we took a swing at it. We tried it, but we didn't end up with a good product. And we're going to lose more money if we put it in theaters than if we just pull the plug on it and take the tax write-off on it.
Do you think it's because of the stars that were...
Okay, so that what you just saw was a clip from the John Campea show. He's talking about the Borderlands didn't make any money. Did Lionsgate know this movie wasn't going to make any money? If Lionsgate did know it wasn't going to make any money, should they have just trashed the film for a tax write-off like David Zaslav did? Now, to those of you who don't know, David Zaslav is the head of Warner Brothers Discovery. He famously trashed the almost complete Batgirl movie last year and the completed animated Scoob sequel, Scoob's Holiday Haunt. And he tried to do it again with Coyote versus Acme, a movie about the Wile E. Coyote suing Acme for their defective products. That's 3 films he thought weren't going to make any money, and he decided we're going to cancel these films for a tax write-off. It's been a very controversial move. and some other studios have copied him. He's the first one that kind of came up with this, let's just trash it and take a tax write-off maneuver. And it's really, really been a controversial thing. When they tried to do it with Coyote versus Acme, a lot of talent started canceling their appointments with Warner Brothers. They were so appalled. They started calling and just canceling their appointments and saying, well, we're not going to work with you if you're going to do this kind of thing. So they kind of reversed course and said, well, we'll try to sell it to another studio then. We'll try to sell the finished film to another studio. By the way, Coyote versus Acme, from those who've seen it, is said to be absolutely amazing. They're saying it's the best live action animation hybrid film since Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Apparently it's something really, really special, but David Zaslav has this idea. He can't make money off it, so he'd rather nobody see it and get a tax write-off. And John Campea, who is a very smart guy and knows movies and usually has a pretty good perspective on these things, he thinks this is a good idea. He takes the attitude, well, everyone got paid. The actors got paid. The filmmakers got paid. They got their paycheck. If the studio can't make money on it, yeah, they should take a tax write-off. I find that appalling. And I don't understand how anybody can call themselves a fan of film, call themselves a fan of cinema, and defend that, because it is so anti-art. Now, as we've been doing the Dog Days of Podcasting, podcast today for the entire month of August, you can find that at wherever you get your podcasts and at the dogdaysofpodcasting.com. As we've been doing these Dog Days of Podcasting, we were talking a couple days ago about how movies, how they do at the box office is not an indication of quality. For example, Wizard of Oz didn't do well at the box office. Citizen Kane didn't do well at the box office. It's a Wonderful Life, Blade Runner, The Big Lebowski. None of these films did well at the box office. They're all considered classics now. They found their audience after the fact. Now, let me be clear. Borderlands. I saw the film. It's not good. It's not good. It's a terrible movie. It's a terrible movie. I didn't like it. So I am not coming to you as a fan of Borderlands defending this film. I'm coming to you as a fan of film, as a fan of art, who believes that this idea that, well, we can't make money off it, so therefore trash it and take a tax write-off, is disgusting. What if The Big Lebowski had been written off for a tax write-off because Universal said, we don't think we're going to make a cent off this? What if It's a Wonderful Life was written off for a tax write-off because they said, we're not going to make any money off this? What if Blade Runner, Tron, go down the list? How many hit films or classic films that we love today? A Christmas Story. You could just go down the list and find all these movies that we now hail as classics that didn't make a dime at the box office. And we got a guy like John Campea, who's a smart guy, saying, no, that's acceptable. If they didn't think they were going to make any money off it, yeah, write it off. Write it off, throw it in the trash. Now, Borderlands, that movie's not that good. At least I don't think it's that good. And the critics that saw it didn't think it's that good. But you know what? There's somebody out there. Whatever the worst movie you ever saw was, it's somebody's favorite movie. Somebody somewhere, it's their favorite movie. There's some kid who's going to see Borderlands who his mom and dad took him to see it. And they walked out and said, that's terrible. And it fired up his imagination. And 20, 30 years from now, that kid's going to be an adult and he's going to have this great love of this film that he saw as a child. It's going to grow with him. It's like me and the He-Man movie, the 1987 He-Man movie. Not a box office success. One of my all-time favorite movies. I saw it as a kid. I love that movie. Didn't do well at the box office. Didn't do well with critics. It was a bomb. But I saw it as a kid. carried it with me my whole life. Still love that movie. And a lot of other people do too. There's merchandise out. They make action figures from the movie. They make t-shirts from the movie. There's merchandise from that failed movie from 1987, because now there's a generation that grew up with it that loves it. And Mattel and Warner Brothers, they're still making money off that movie because they're still putting it out on Blu-ray and the Blu-rays are selling. And they're still making merch and the merch is selling. There was a film Warner Brothers had in 2008, a horror film called Trick or Treat. Little horror film. They looked at it. They didn't have any faith in this movie. No faith whatsoever. They dumped it direct to video. It's now considered a classic. It's now considered a classic. There's talk about making a sequel. And every year at Halloween, all the Halloween stores, your Spirit Halloweens, whatever, they always have a ton of trick-or-treat merchandise. Merch is selling from that movie like crazy. People want to buy merch from the Trick-or-Treat movie every year. If you're not a horror fan, you may not know about this because it is a very, it's not a huge blockbuster film that everybody knows about. But, with horror fans, Trick or Treat is revered and it sells a lot of merchandise. And this is a film Warner Brothers had no faith in and dumped it direct to video. What if Warner Brothers dumped that movie for a tax write-off? Nobody ever saw it. This sickens me, the idea of doing this. It absolutely sickens me. And I don't even like the movie we're talking about. But that doesn't mean you could write it off for a tax write-off. You shouldn't be able to. And I'm heartbroken. I'm probably never going to get to see Coyote versus Acme because everything that's come out about that film says it's fantastic. And John Campea should know better. This really bothers me. I'm sorry. I like John Campea. And I think the fact that I like John Campea makes this clip all the more distressing because he should know better. He should know better. Box office has never equaled quality. Never has. And even if you look at something like Borderlands and say, well, nobody's going to like this. You don't know that. Because somebody thought nobody was going to like Trick or Treat. Somebody looked at Trick or Treat and said, there's no potential for this film. We can't make any money off this. Dump it. Dump it on a direct to Blu-ray. That was before the whole tax write-off trend started. That was before David Zaslav opened that can of worms. That's a film that could have been written off. So just because you look at something and say, I see no potential here, doesn't mean you're right. Doesn't mean somebody else isn't going to see something in that. And again, we're talking about a movie I didn't like, Borderlands. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether I liked the film or not. Somebody out there liked it. Somebody out there, there's a kid, I'm telling you, man, there's a kid who went and saw that movie with his parents. He's maybe 8 or 9 years old, and he's going to grow up, and years from now, 30, 40 years from now, he's going to have, this movie's going to be beloved to him. Because that's the way these things work. You don't see it, I don't see it, but I mean, we saw it with The Phantom Menace. We saw it with The Phantom Menace. There's a whole generation that complained about how much they hated The Phantom Menace. And then there's a whole generation that grew up with it, and it's a beloved film to them. So, yeah, I'm disappointed in John Campea. No, Borderlands should not have been written off for a tax write-off. No film should. No film should. Here's the thing. Making movies, especially big budget movies, is a risk. You are taking a risk when you greenlight a movie. And when you take a risk, it's like going to the casino and gamble. When you win, like a Barbie or Wolverine and Deadpool, like when your financial gamble pays off, holy God, you get paid big time. You get paid big time if your gamble pays off. But sometimes those gambles don't pay off. But you took that risk. You were the one that read that script. You were the one that saw this and said, this looks like a viable option. We are going to put money into this. You took that risk. You can't just write it off. And if you do make that choice and say, we're going to do a tax write-off, it should go to the public domain. People should still get to see it. It should be available in the public domain. All right, that's all I have to say. Keep wearing those pajamas.
Keep wearing those pajamas
with the plastic feet.
Keep wearing those pajamas.
Tell everyone you meet.
Keep wearing those pajamas
with the back door flap.
Keep wearing those pajamas.
Don't open it, it's a trap.
Oh no,
it's a trap. Some people call them PJs, some people call them jammies. They can come embroidered with big money and no whammies. They can have 100 tiny commander pajamas, but no matter how they look, just keep on wearing those pajamas.
Keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep wearing those pajamas.
And now we're having fun.
Keep wearing those pajamas.
And now the song is done.